Welcome everybody to Kelby Training and a very, very rare conversation. This is something that's actually very unprecedented for us, but it's something that I'm really, really excited about. And I'm here with Scott Kelby. Scott, what's going on? How are you?
I'm very excited, RC.
I know.
You said, it's new, it's different.
It's wild. It's like we've been sitting here and there's like the run up to this. It's just been really cool because, well, let me tell you a little bit about what happened here. We were sitting around and we were taking a look at the blog after Scott coming back from an amazing experience in, of all places, Cuba.
Cuba, yeah.
Right? Good time?
Oh, incredible. A wonderful time. Really
Beaming?
wonderful.
Right?
Beaming,
so
yes.
Scott's been kind of running around, just kind of floating around the office.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, it's a destination that many people don't really talk about. It's something that feels like is so far away from what you would actually do that I myself had a whole bunch of questions. I'm sitting there and I'm like, but what's going on? And you did this blog that's over on scottkelby.com and then talked a little bit about all of your things and you made a book, but there were a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where kind of the genesis of all of this started. It was just kind of to have a conversation and talk about some of the things photographically and people and community and culture and bring it all together in one spot rather than have just a Q&A thing, because I think that I've already heard just a tiny, tiny bit of it, and I was sitting there going, really?
Really?
Like, it's just
That's
one of
how
those
I
things.
was the whole time. I kept going, really? You know.
All right, but so the facts. So you were there for how many days, just to start?
2.5 days, basically. We flew out Thursday afternoon. We got there Thursday afternoon because it's a very short flight, an hour and 15 minutes from my office. So I know, crazy. And
actually,
we were just a weekend and back home on Sunday.
Okay, so you were back home now. All right, so let's just start with the very, very basics. Cuba, like. You know, I'm like, Montana.
Why Cuba?
Why Cuba?
Well,
Cuba?
So when I got my first iPad, I bought a very great list manager called Sorted.
Okay.
And it doesn't do anything fancy at all, but it looks really great. It's a very good looking, a great user interface. So one of the first things I wrote was 10 places I want to visit, the next 10 places I want to visit. And I put Havana, Cuba on there. And that was the one I thought, well, this is the least likely for me to get to, right? Even though I know that the United States government has eased some of the, under the Obama administration, has eased some of the travel restrictions, I'm like, I'm not really getting to Cuba. And literally, I get an email from my friend Al, and he says, hey, his wife was born in Cuba, got out in 1960. And he says, hey, we're going with a bunch of couples down to Cuba. You want to go? And I was like, so I emailed my wife because I was out like I was at the office and I said, honey, are we going? She says, I already told them we're going. And I'm like, yes. So it really was just, they're going, they put a group together to go. And then I had to ask all the questions like, well, can we just go to Cuba? You know, and all that. So we'll talk about all that stuff. But anyway, yes, we can go to Cuba, apparently, if you follow a few rules to make sure that you do it legally. I don't want to, you know, because you used to have to like sneak out of the country and you'd go to like Mexico.
See, and that's what I've always thought of.
And so that's why I never thought I'm not going to go through all that and then have to, because at some point you're going to be standing in front of a U.S. Customs officer and they're going to go, were you in Cuba? So it's that kind of thing.
And you're sitting there with a big Cuba shirt.
Yeah.
Since I heard Cuba, and you're like,
and
no.
the hat and also, no. So, yeah.
But there was a lot of things that in the middle of all of that stuff, there was a lot of things that were very, very eye-opening. And one of the things that I wanted to do was, actually, I was going through your blog and I was taking a look at the things, and there were a lot of photographic things that took me. I mean, I've always been fascinated about Cuba, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys are too. So I figured we tackle this and just kind of go, all right, well, was it what you thought it was going to be? How was it? What kind of pictures? And kind of deal with it from, you know, the photographic standpoint. Now, 2 days. How many images total would you say that you shot?
I know how many. It's 766 images, which isn't a lot for like 2.5 days.
Okay.
I mean, if I shoot any sporting event, I'll shoot 1,500 to 2,000 in 3 hours. So over almost 2.5 days, I only shot 700. Now, within that 700, I had a few more, but it would be 5-frame HDR, or something like that. So it was. I mean, technically, you could say I shot about 1,000 images, but actual what will be single images was 766. I actually looked and counted because.
Now, did you feel like you captured everything when you were working with it, or do you feel like you come back and did you come back and go, all right, I did it, I'm happy with it, or are you?
Oh, I want to go back. You know what it was? was I didn't want to go there and experience Cuba only through my viewfinder. I even said that to my wife at some point. So like we took a bus tour and I pretty much just sat back and I just wanted to see the city. So I was there, I wasn't on assignment, I didn't have a certain number of images to come back with. I really wanted to be able to enjoy it and see it and enjoy the culture and the food and the music and stuff. And so I really didn't want to just be there to see how many photos I could take and get in and out quick.
Okay.
You know, now that I know that it's more accessible than I ever dreamed that it was, you know, all I could think of was, well, I'm going to have a really great time here, but man, do I want to come back, because it honestly is. And I have to tell you, I was inspired to go to Cuba in the first place by Rick Salmon's photos. So Rick Salmon is a friend of ours and a very good travel photographer. Rick had these great shots of these old cars. And I've got one on my screen here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right,
Just to start off with this, because my experiences with Cuba have been with a photographer named Peter Turnley. Peter Turnley does a lot of stuff. Okay, yeah, so he does these kinds of images, and this is the first thing that I wanted to kind of why not lead off with this and talk a little bit about this, because
here, I'll get the black and white.
You're a fan of cars, right?
Yeah,
and
I mean, I love cars.
You're a fan of the scene. How this for me was something that I thought I would be really, really excited about. You know, the classic old car scene inside of it. Was it what you expected? Was it what you not expected?
So
here's what was it?
Here's what I expected. I didn't expect to see so many old cars. I thought you'd get down there and there would be, you know, a couple hundred, and you'd wait around and an old car would come by, like, ooh, there's an old car. I kid you not, there were thousands of old cars. Okay. Thousands of them. I thought you'd see 100, 200, which is a lot in a city. Okay. Every other car was a 1960 or earlier. Okay. Chevy, Pontiacs, and Buicks.
Now, does it make it a very target-rich environment? Like you're just like, oh, here we go, cars everywhere.
Okay, it does. It's very interesting, and I want to show you some examples. So, like this particular shot, you look at it, and it really looks like it is a place and time, which is why I wanted to make it black and white. Right. But here's the challenge of shooting old cars in Cuba. While there are thousands of old cars, there's also thousands more of relatively new cars. Although you don't see American cars there, like you don't see, you know,
a Chevy running.
You don't see a Saturn go by or something. You do see Hyundais and Toyotas and Nissans and Mercedes, and I saw a turbo Porsche go by. You do see, and new buses and Jeeps and and Land Rovers. You see every other country. You see, I saw Peugeot dealers. I saw Renault dealers, brand new cars. I saw Audis, all driving. That's the problem. So to get a shot like this just requires one thing, patience. You have to camp out and wait until there isn't an Audi right next to it. Because, can I show you a couple examples? I'm in Lightroom, so I can give you an example of what I call spoilers, right?
See, and this is the part where, I stop you there for a second, because this is the part where I was just like, no, say it isn't so. Like, it's like this kind of...
Right, but look at this picture right here. So here is this old car parked right in front of the hotel. Right next to it is a Hyundai. Right next to it's another old car. Right next to it is like a Toyota Corolla, and then another Toyota. So the challenge is and then look, here's a modern building, and here's an old building. So the challenge really was with the old cars was to isolate them or set up in a place where you would see only old buildings in the background, and then wait for there only to be old cars. And I have some shots that are in the photo book to see in a minute where it's only old cars in the entire shot. But to get that, even though there's thousands of cars, since they're all mixed in, you just have to be patient. Okay. Now, sometimes you'll be walking along and you'll see 4 or 5 cars in a row, but then right behind it would be a new building. And you're like, oh, there's if you want that look of old Havana, which I can tell you right now, that's what I was going for. Now, I knew that I loved the old cars, but it's like Jay Maisel says, shoot what you're passionate about. I shot the old cars to death. In fact, I had to tell myself at one point, I'm going out on this little 2-hour jaunt. I'm not going to shoot cars, because dude, you can't help it. Every time you turn around, here's a car you never see. I would say that a lot of the cars are in fantastic condition, and some of the cars are absolutely driving Bondo. They're gray with like primer. I mean, they're junk.
I've heard of people like actually doing house paint.
Oh yeah,
like people just paint with house paint.
With paint. But can I say this? I would say for the most part, without close inspection, they all look pretty good. I mean, you do see these gray bombs go by and old trucks go by, but I would say for the most part, they're brightly colored. Very, very pretty. And what's interesting about them is you can rent these, and you can go out, and I did. Every single day I rented a new one, and I'll show you the different cars. But up until 2 years ago, you were not allowed to take foreigners in your car. So if you look at the picture you see here, the image on screen that I'm pointing to now, there we go, has a blue tag.
Okay.
A blue tag means this is a government-owned taxi. Foreigners were only allowed to ride until 2 years ago in government-owned taxis. Most of the cars that you see anywhere now have yellow tags, which are privately owned. So I never rode the whole time I was there, I never rode in a government-owned
So
taxi.
private owned as in like
Yeah, they own it themselves. They bought
Citizen
it. John Citizen bought the car and restored it and repairs it, and it's his car. And
that's his business.
That's his business.
Okay.
And so everybody else, I rode around in their cars. But that's very different. 2 years ago, if I had gone there, I would not use that. Hey, I just want to make a note. So we're having a problem that we can't understand with our commenting. Okay. So if you go to my Google Plus page, we're going to be. You can go to scottgplus.com. Just Scott, the letter G. plus plus.com. If you go there and post comments, we'll be monitoring those.
So great. Okay.
Because our commenting, for some reason we can't explain today, is not working, but we still want your comments, and I'll read them here on the air. But what was I saying?
We were talking about privately owned taxis. And
yeah, privately owned.
Up to a couple years ago, you wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to, and that would have broken my heart because I never even dreamed you wouldn't be able to ride in them. So when I got there, and I mean, guys are walking like here's what they do basically, just so you have a heads up when you go. If you start taking pictures of a parked car, the guy that owns that car is sitting 50 feet away, just out of sight, and you start going ooh, and they come up and go. You know that is a 1957 Chevy. That is a Bel Air. And you're like, wow, that's an incredible car. Do you want to ride in the car? And then they start negotiating the price. So they're waiting everywhere. So if you go by a hotel, there will always be 3 or 4 cars parked right in front of the hotel. And if you start ticking them, you have a conversation going in 2 seconds. And then,
nice.
And they're like, you want to go for a ride. And
but now, so does that set you up in a position where you literally just riding around in a car and just kind of click, 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 and just shooting around, or like?
Yeah, you're riding around shooting. Now you can also ask them to stop. And,
okay.
And I'll talk about that in just a second too.
All right.
But the great thing about it is riding in a convertible is a wonderful way to shoot, because a double-decker bus is really hard. You've got a really weird angle on everything. Sometimes it's cool, but a lot of times it's very funky. And then the other thing is with a car and a private driver, you can just say, hey, can we stop? Espera un momento, and they'll just stop for a moment. You can shoot. I could jump out and take a quick shot, jump back in if it was someplace that was easy to get back in and out. And so I did that. I would jump in and out of these cars, and you rent them by the hour.
Okay.
And so and you can negotiate anywhere from $20 an hour to $30 an hour.
Now, does that pretty much get you? So being in a car, would you recommend that to be kind of the best way to be able to move around?
No, actually, I wouldn't. It is a lot of fun, and you got to realize. So my wife and I are in Havana, and it's a beautiful night. It's getting close to sunset, and we're in like a Ford, and we're driving. We're driving down the beach. I mean, it's like picture Miami Beach, but it's in Havana. You're driving down this beautiful beach, beautiful buildings, beautiful sunset, and you're in the back of this big old classic car. You're like, this is crazy. This is insane. So while it was it's a very fun way to travel. For a photographer, I would recommend something different. It's very cool to travel in this because you get wind. Mm-hmm. June may not be the best time to go to Havana. It's extremely. People said, "Oh, it's going to be really, really hot." I'm from Florida. I'm used to hot. I'm born and raised in Tampa area. I'm used to very hot. I'm used to humid. It was extremely hot and humid down there. So the best way actually would be to use a bicycle taxi. Those are number one, they're very inexpensive. They're like, you can go for 10 Cuban dollars, which is less than American dollars, but 10 Cuban dollars an hour. They will drive you around, but here's the thing about it. When you have a big car like this and you go, ooh, can you stop here? Sometimes the answer is no. Like, I can stop over here or I can stop down the street. And then if you jump out, he has to circle and go around 2 blocks on a one-way. You know what I mean? It can be, what should take you 60 seconds can literally take 5 minutes. But on a bicycle, you go by a doorway or something, because there's a lot of like wrought iron doors and beautiful entryways and stuff, beautiful like courtyards. If you say stop, they can just instantly pull over. You can jump out, and literally just shoot and then get back in. And you've, like I would pull up from a church and I go, hey, can I go inside here? And you're like, yeah, sure. I would jump out, go inside the church, HDR, 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 and do it in 60 seconds. I'm back in the car, like, I'm back in the bike, let's go. And he's right outside the door where we left.
All right, let me gear shift here real quick.
Yep.
So you said you were doing HDRs. Was the trip entirely HDR, a little bit HDR? How much did you find yourself bracketing?
Not very much, really. And none of the shots that I showed and that I'm going to show tonight are bracketed. Okay. I shot bracketed shots, but I didn't really get a chance to process them. And I want to go back now and process some as HDR. But honestly, and we're going to talk about this a little later, Lightroom 4 is so powerful. You can get the HDR look with single frames. And so I had so many people say, oh, that's HDR, that's HDR. I'm like, no, I didn't do any HDR yet, but I will. Inside the churches, I shot bracketed all the time.
Okay, and 3, 5, 7, 9?
Well, that's an interesting thing. All right, so can I stop right there while we're talking about HDR? I want to talk about the equipment I took, and I want to talk to you about my complaint about the D800. I have one major complaint about the D800, and it's about HDR. So
how about we take a quick break? Can we take a break?
Can we take a break? Sure. Hey,
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, before we take a break, I just want to mention, so right before we went on the air, MPix heard I was doing this. And MPix is got a special offer together for anybody watching this, because I'm getting one of my prints ready to send to MPix, and I'll show you the print. I actually have it in here. There's one particular shot that I like, and I really like it, and I don't know why. Nobody else ever mentioned it in any of this. I want you to pick which one you think it is.
Okay, so I'm going through all of your images in that blog post,
right?
And you want me to pick the image?
I want you to pick the image that's my favorite, that nobody ever mentioned. But anyway, I'm sending it to MPix to get it framed. So I'm putting it in the poster border, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff today. My buddy sees it and goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" So I'm sending it to MPix, and he's like, "Oh man, I wonder if we could get MPix to do a deal."
Oh, look, there it is.
Oh, there. All right, so this is what they're doing. Okay, so the size I generally make is 16 by 20. You can choose all paper types. And this is based on what I actually get. See, it's called Scott's favorite frame. If you look at my account, I always get the same frame. I get a 16 by 20. I get the standard paper. It's like the premium luster kind of paper. I always get a black metal frame. I always get the glass. The matting option I get is actually the double board backing. So it's perfectly flat. It won't, buckle or anything. Okay. And you only get to use this deal one time.
All right. And it's available from June 13th to June 17th?
Yeah, it's for 5 days, and you get free FedEx shipping. So basically, you pay for the print and everything, and they FedEx it to you for free. And the promo code is Scott's Fave Frame.
And it will be fast. It will be fast.
So that was kind of serendipitous. This all happened right before I got here. They go, hey, MPix heard you were going to send this file, and now they're going to give us the deal. That's pretty cool. You got to love MPix. So now we're sponsored by MPix. Thank you, MPix.
Yeah, so great. Well,
but yeah, they're an online photo lab, and they're wonderful people.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the gear. We'll talk about the gear, what you brought, why you made the decision to bring it.
Yeah, because that was sticky too.
That I thought was pretty revealing. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Fashion, lighting. I'm obsessed with red. Red is arresting, it's eye-catching. People can go anywhere for beautiful headshots, nice portraits. But what I like to do is give them something a little more. Have a concept. I like to tell a story. As a professional portrait and fashion photographer, I like to take the elements of fashion photography and apply them to my portrait and wedding work. We'll cover locations, props, hair and makeup, just a lot of different elements that you can apply to your work and really stand out from the crowd. Fashion flair is not ordinary, it's exciting. So come watch my class, Fashion Flair, at kelbytraining.com.
Have you been looking to take your photography to the next level? Learn from some of the world's top pro photographers and instructors? At kelbytraining.com, that experience is only a few clicks away.
Hey Jason, I'm glad you joined me today on Kelby Training. We're going to be getting some great motocross action. Guys are going to be flying over my head. Jason, we're going to be using high-speed sync and speed lights to get some great action.
Whether on location or in studio, our instructors teach you some of the most sought-after techniques giving you a first-hand look at their work step by step. It's unlimited one-on-one training, giving you 24-hour-a-day access to hundreds of exclusive classes.
Jason, we had a great class today. I hope you learned a lot with our speed lights and high-speed sync action. Remember, KelbyTraining.com. It's a one-stop shopping for great learning, great photography classes. We'll see you next time.
Experience a class on KelbyTraining.com. Subscribe today. Visit KelbyTraining.com for more information.
Welcome back, everybody, to Kelby Training and a special conversation with Scott Kelby, connecting with Cuba. I'm glad you guys are here. Before we do anything else, I kind of wanted to spend some time talking to you about a couple of things, housekeeping things. First off, if you're watching this, I would encourage you guys, tell a friend, right? So you're watching this right now on KelbyTV.com/on-air. Yeah. Go on Google+, go on Twitter, go on Facebook, and go, hey, I'm watching a conversation about photography in Cuba. Come watch it over here. So make sure that you do that. That's one thing. The second thing is, if you want to leave us a comment, make sure that you go to scottgplus.com. That's Scott, the letter G, Plus.com. And you can leave your comments there. Brad's monitoring the comments, and we've got some great conversations that's already happening.
Yeah, great questions are coming in. I'll be answering them here in just a sec.
Now, we also talked about a promo, right? A special promo that we're doing from MPix, and immediately after we talked about it, some people had some questions about it. It was a 16x20 print, and MPix is going to be doing a great job of giving you free FedEx shipping. Now, there isn't a price associated with it because it all depends on what you choose for paper type, what you choose for glass options.
If you want glass or not.
Or a matte and things like that. So you're going to have to go to mpix.com and take a look at that, but just make sure that you use the promo code ScottsFaveFrame, and you're going to be good to go. But those were a couple of the different housekeeping things that I want to do. I don't want to take up too much time because I want to spend some more time talking about
equipment.
The equipment. What kind of equipment do you go in? So do you have two bodies, backups?
Oh, see, this is the problem. So, hold on, I got to turn off something. They're sending me a note here. Okay. And something I'm doing is messing up things, so I'm going to do that. Okay. So, so we're flying an airline. We fly directly from Tampa to Havana. It's an hour and 15-minute flight, which is wonderful. I mean, it's like quicker than going to Atlanta, or about the same as going to Atlanta.
Okay, so you're not going into a third country to...
No. Tampa, Havana. Okay. You land at Jose Marti Airport in Havana. So it's a direct flight. It's very, very short. Nice 737 jet. Sky King Airlines is what we flew. Nice. American Airlines flies down there too. So from Miami straight to Cuba.
This is very confusing to me, Scott.
I know. I was surprised about all this too, and we're going to talk next about logistics, like how are you able to go there as an American. But here was the problem. They said, and they were very, very strict about this, was now we had a guy taking us down. So we went as part of a group. And he gave us some good heads up before we did. Hold on, there's another thing wrong with my computer. Hold on. Yay. One moment, please.
And okay, so while you do that, let me just say, I absolutely love this bag.
I know, that bag is cool. That is the Think Tank Retrospective 5. I wanted to take kind of a low-key bag. I didn't want to scream, hey, I've got camera equipment. But what's weird is Havana is thought as far as tourists go, is one of the safest cities in the world. That crime against tourists there is virtually unheard of, and it's very, very, very rare. Violent crime, especially against any kind of tourist, like a mugging or something, is incredibly rare.
But this is something that I use the bigger one. I've never had this one. I think this is
it's
great.
Nice. It's got little secret, panels and stuff. Where,
but it doesn't scream, "Hey, look, I'm a photography."
No, it screams, "Hey, I got a green bag." So, but here's the thing. So when we went on the airline, they gave us some guidelines. They said, "Don't check any luggage." Apparently, if you, excuse me, if you do check luggage, when you get to Havana, they X-ray every single piece of luggage to see if you're sneaking anything in, trying to get around tariffs or things. There's as I understand it, a 100% tariff on anything you bring in. So if I'm bringing you a TV and you live in Cuba, and I buy, and there were people in line with Best Buy TVs, you take the receipt with you, and if it costs you $4.95 here in the United States, when you arrive in Havana to give this to your family, you pay another $4.95 in tax. So they make sure you're not sneaking electronics and stuff in, and so they said, don't check any bags or you'll be there for hours, because they X-ray every single bag. So they said, you must take carry-on. Here was the tricky thing. You are limited to 20 pounds per carry-on. Now,
so you have one bag, two bags?
You can have two bags, but 20 pounds, you're supposed to have one regular one and one small one.
Okay.
Dude, 20 pounds. My empty bag weighs 7 pounds.
Right.
Then you take a camera body and a lens, and now you're at, you add another 5 or 6 pounds.
Okay.
You add a pair of shoes and a shaver, and you're at 20 pounds.
Right.
So I was taking a D4, and at the last minute, I changed to this D800 for a couple of reasons. Number one is, I got the D800. I've done one quick shoot with it. I really didn't get to spend any time with it. And all I hear is people raving about the incredible quality, and I will rave with them. The detail, you shot with it. You just went to Bodie, right? The detail is insane.
It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
It's like, I felt looking at the images on here like I did when I shot my first digital back. Like, I just can't believe the depth of clarity and the detail you can get. You can zoom and zoom and zoom and zoom. Wow, it's crazy. So I decided to take the D800. It doesn't have a battery grip. We have the battery grip, but we didn't put it on because we wanted to keep it smaller and save weight. I also only took one lens. Now, I generally take the 28 to 300. At the last minute, I did what I'll often do, thought, I ought to take the 14 to 24. And RC, I got to tell you, there were 4 or 5 situations where I was dying to have the 14 to 24. There was no way I could fit it in my bag. When I got to the airport, the 20-pound bag was almost 31 pounds. And I had to borrow another guy's bag on the trip and take some of my stuff out of there. And you can't believe how much stuff I had to take out to get down 10 pounds. All I had, one pair of jeans, socks, underwear, a couple of T-shirts. I don't travel with a lot of clothes. I'm not Diana Ross. A little kit, with a shaver and, toothbrush and stuff. A pair of shoes. I did have a sports coat in case we went to a nice dinner. And as it turned out, we did, so it was good. And my camera gear, 30 pounds. And dude, they weigh every bag at the airport. Right at Tampa Airport, they weigh every single bag, and you are not getting on that plane if you are 21 pounds. So
wow.
Luckily, a friend of mine had a.
Oh, yeah, we got a couple of new notes that have come in.
Okay, some more new notes are coming in here. Okay, apparently the chat is working. So you can actually do it right in the page. You just have to refresh. Just refresh your browser, Command-R on Mac or Control-R on PC.
And then you'll be good to go.
And you'll be good to go, and then you can start chatting. Okay, so I went with a very, very slim gear. Nikon D800, I want to gripe about it in a minute. 28 to 300 lens, I want to gripe. Fantastic okay. Lens for travel. You know why? It's wide angle, it's telephoto, it's everything you need. It's just, if I wanted anything else, it's to be a little bit wider sometimes. Okay. Like my dream lens, this is 24 to 3, like 18 to 3 would have been, 24 even, but it was just a little wider would have been nice. Okay. I had to go really light on my tripod. This is the lightest weight tripod ever. This is the Gitzo Traveler. It is incredibly lightweight, and I took a BH40 ball head. As it turned out, I only used this one single time, and none of those images made my photo book.
Really?
So as it turned out, I shot from a rooftop of our hotel one night. They had a pool on the top of the restaurant of the hotel, and I shot one time with it, and they are HDR shots. Okay. A lot of those at night, and they're just not that good.
So pretty much just that one camera just drops into the bag, and that's it.
I took a Hoodman loop, and of course I had to take a charger, right, a battery charger, and because we didn't have a backup battery yet, and a card reader. That's it. That was everything I took.
Pretty good. 32 gig card? Do okay?
Yeah, I did.
This thing is beat. Like, look at this thing.
Lexar 32 gig area. I had a couple of those.
So, and now, was this fast? Was this card fast enough for?
Oh, that car's smoking fast. I think it's 600 speed, right?
Yeah, this is the 600.
That's a 600 speed.
Then we got the turn it.
Yeah, the Lexar. Yeah. So
it's all right. We're doing okay. Fast enough for the thing.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
All right. So,
okay.
So you mentioned
my gripe about the
okay. That's gonna be like what?
All right, Nikon. I swear, I hope you're listening because I'm so cranked about this. I want to throw my camera.
No, don't throw the camera.
I'm not going to throw it, but I want to crank. All right, so I have a D4. One of my very, very favorite features on the D4 is the ability to shoot HDR. I can shoot an HDR shot in 3 frames. I can set it up, and this is the only Nikon camera I've had that does this. I can set it to shoot 2 stops under, the normal exposure, and 2 stops over. 3 frames, bang, bang, bang. And so when you're in a church handheld and you don't have your tripod with you, you can go click, 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 HDR, right?
Right.
The D800, brand new camera, does not have that same function. I have to shoot 5 frames here. Now you could say, well, okay, yeah, what's the big deal? The big deal is this is a 36 megapixel?
36 megapixels.
36 megapixels. And I have to shoot 5 frames, and I have to throw 2 of them away. Nikon, This is the camera you should have put that feature on. It belongs on the D800, not on the D4 that's 18 megapixels. This one is double the megapixels. This is the one where being able to shoot 3 frames actually makes a big, big, big difference.
Personal plea moment, go to camera 2.
All right, personal plea moment, go to camera 2. Nikon, do this. It's a software fix. It doesn't have to do anything with the button. Freaking release a firmware update that gives D800 users and the thousands of D800 users who are waiting to get a D800, all you have to do is release a firmware. You know it. I know it. RC knows it. Meredith knows it. Brad knows it.
But other
we all
than
know
that,
it. Other than that, it's the most outstanding camera ever. It's just incredible. I like it in some ways better than my D4, but then my D4 does some certain things. But that's okay. They are 2 different cameras for 2 different things. But when it comes to this HDR thing, you really, really, really need to be able to shoot just 3 frames here. And Nikon can do it with a firmware release. They do them all the time. It's just a change in the software. It doesn't add any buttons to the camera.
Okay.
It can be done. Please, Nikon, I'm begging you. You put it on the wrong camera. It belongs on this one.
Nice.
Okay.
Let me take some questions. Darlene. So Darlene asks, can you tell us more about the logistics of how you were able to go there? I'm planning a trip to Cuba, and I have American friends that want to join me, but they don't know how to go about it. Want to talk about that a little bit later? Or?
Well, we can talk about it now. Actually, you have to go there. I went there under what's called a cultural exchange program. So there is a group that puts together cultural trips to Cuba. What that really meant was when we go to Cuba, you're going to visit cultural things. We're going to go to museums, which we did, and some incredible museums. You're going to see music, dancing, culture. You're going to see cultural things. And what you can bring back to America are only cultural objects. So you can't go back and bring Cuban cigars and rum and stuff. You can bring back artwork, music, things like that, movies that were made in Cuba. So it is a cultural exchange.
Yeah, you're exposing Cubans to American culture,
right? And then you're getting exposed to all this stuff, and you can bring it back to America to share with Americans. But it is definitely a cultural exchange. It's legal, believe me. And this is what people are writing on my blog. I can't believe you broke federal law and all. Look, I have to hand my passport to a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol guy in Tampa, and do you think he went, "You were in Cuba? Jail." You know what he said when I handed him the thing? "Welcome back." Right this way. You know why? Because we're in Tampa Airport in a regularly scheduled airplane flight. Airplane, that sounded bad. Airplane flight.
Sounded dirty.
I know, it just came out bad.
Okay, well, cool.
Oh, now, wait, hold on.
Oh, okay.
So they're asking me to do more things here. Let me get rid of this tool.
So it was a regular flight. You go to Customs. Customs says welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
That's pretty much it.
And that's it. But you just can't say, "Hey, I'm booking a flight," because there are some restrictions. If you have family in Cuba, I guess it's very easy. You can literally just book a hotel and go. And I gotta tell you something. They have absolutely fabulous hotels. The hotel I stayed in, it was not a Westin. But dude, it looked like a Westin. I could show you just pictures of the whole place, and you'd go, "Is that the Westin in Cincinnati? Is that the Westin in Atlanta?" It was absolutely beautiful, state-of-the-art, wireless, great restaurants. I mean, absolutely gorgeous hotel.
That's on here. You would
swear that it was there. Okay, but so really, you have to. If there are so many travel agencies that specialize in travel to Cuba, they put groups together. They take them down there, and it'll be a cultural exchange. But there's all kinds of ways to go. But it would start with going in Google and finding travel to Cuba from U.S., and you will find travel agencies that specialize. There are regularly scheduled flights every day from Miami on American Airlines, from Tampa on Sky King, from New York City straight to Havana, from all over the United States. Apparently, the Obama administration has eased travel restrictions.
Okay.
And as long as you go there and you're not going to be bringing back a bunch of cigars and things, I wouldn't have gone if it was illegal, and that's why I thought I was never going to go, because I thought it was illegal. Things have changed.
Right, and I think that what a lot of people don't know is that there's a trade embargo. It's products. It's products.
Yeah, they don't
companies.
want you spending U.S. dollars, and you're not going to. You're going to have to change your money into Cuban dollars, Cuban pesos. And the exchange rate works better if you exchange you exchange euros instead of U.S. dollars.
Oh. Okay.
So we had our bank give us euros, and we changed to Cuban dollars, and it was a really good conversion rate.
Okay, let me take a couple more questions here. Did you have a person from the government following you around? also that they allow you to go anywhere in the island.
Yeah. So, Sean, we were allowed to go anywhere. Now, was there a person following the government? I would say absolutely not. Sean, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Americans all over Cuba. Everywhere I went, everybody was speaking English. So
who'd you run into? You were telling me that.
Yeah, I'm like in a square, and I see these photographers shooting. Because there are a couple of people. I have 2 shots in my thing, and actually, I will show you them here. Can we just go to my? Let me just zip down here. So these 2 women, not here. Hold on, way a little further. Way down the end. There we go. These 2 women, they pose for pictures for a peso. Okay. I mean, really, they're there, they get dressed up, you know, and I asked this woman, can you stand in front of the yellow wall? She was in the middle of the square. But I see all these people gathered around her, and they're taking pictures with her and stuff, and I walk over there. It's a National Geographic photo tour. All Americans. They all have little names. My name is Bob, you know. They're all there, and there's like 30 of them taking pictures. There were Americans everywhere. Everywhere we went,
Europeans?
All through the hotels. There were Europeans. There were a lot of British. There were a lot of Canadians. Tons of Americans. They were all over the place there. So I never, ever saw an Army person the entire time I was there. I never saw a machine gun. I never saw guards. I never saw anything militaristic. You would have no way of knowing that you were in a communist country. There was nothing there to let you know. And when you leave the airport, there are a couple of propagandas, you know, just, right. You know, Viva la Revolucion and little things. But I mean, nothing, you know, outside. And it's all right there at the airport. Like, tell me, you're here, see?
Talk a little bit about the planes.
Oh, this was kind of interesting. The only thing that was different that you would not know you were in like Bermuda was when you land, all of the airplanes that are already there are Russian. Like they're like Cubana Airlines or all these like Russian Antonov and Tupolev and all these different Russian airliners. I'm not used to seeing Russian airlines. I mean, every once in a while you see an Aeroflot flight in New York or in Paris or something, but it's weird. You look out and they just look different. You know, that's not Boeing, that's not Airbus, that's Russian. You know, because you know it looked kind of. But then it ended. Then that was it. You don't see tanks. You don't see army men. I mean, I've been to a lot of countries where I saw machine gun guards all over the place. Mm-hmm. I never saw as many machine gun guards in India, you know, and in China, and with machine guns. I never saw an army guy, and we were all over that island. So we could go anywhere we want, do anything we want. We did not have anybody from the government with us. I don't know if they could have enough people. There were so many Americans there to stick a government person with you. Okay. But I don't know what you would do. I don't know what scary secret place you would go. It's a big, beautiful city. You know what I mean? It's like, I wouldn't be like, no, I went by the Russian embassy. We saw the Russian embassy. It's gigantic. It looks like a big microphone. It's this big building with a little square at the top. It looks like, speak into this. But we just drove around it. It's right next to a big resort hotel. Now there's it's old. It's really old and dilapidated. Right. The Russians left when the Soviet Union collapsed.
All right, so James, Scott, I saw that you said none of your photos were tone mapped or HDR. Can you explain some of the processing that you did? It looks very close to HDR.
Yeah. James, let me do this real quick. I'll just open an image here from the. We'll just open up one of these of the old car here.
Oh, okay. While you're doing that, I'll knock out a couple more.
All right.
Did you take a laptop?
Yeah, I took this one right here. Yeah,
okay,
MacBook Pro.
All right. Power was okay?
110 power. Just boom, right in the wall, 110.
Okay.
110,
well,
yeah.
Easy enough. What were the restrictions of what you could or couldn't photograph?
There was no restrictions. There's nobody there to tell you. Not, I mean, I'm sure if I showed up at Guantanamo or something, and I showed up at some military base, and I did see two like training facilities for military. Not, I mean, but you didn't see guards with machine guns or anything. I'm sure if I jumped out and started taking pictures, they might have said.
You probably would have.
But you know what? That'll happen here in the United States if you pop out at MacDill Air Force Base or.
If you pop out to a regular post office, it'll happen here.
Yeah, I got stopped at the train station in Dallas. Outside the train station, shooting in this old building, and the security came.
You'll get jacked by a cop in New York City.
You'll get jacked by a cop in New York City.
Christian, Scott, do you speak Spanish?
Mi madre nació en España, en Madrid, pero yo only habla español un poquito. So un poco, just enough to get around and order food. I always felt like I didn't need to order food everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I would, hamburguesa con papas fritas, por favor, y un vaso de Coca-Cola. Yeah, I always had no problem ordering food. And we got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, just enough to get around. I had one of the little bicycle guys, and I talked more Spanish in 3 days than I probably have in my life.
I would say, to be fair, you do speak a little bit more Spanish than food. it just doesn't come out until you actually have to start thinking about it.
Yeah,
So
I have to start thinking. I understand more than I can
Right.
speak.
So like we'll be doing something. They'll be like, "Oh, buenos dias, cómo estás?" And I'm like, Wait a minute!" And then I have to remember that he actually is from Spain.
All right. So yeah, my mother. No, everybody doesn't think. Yeah, my mother is from Spain. She's was very cool.
All right. So
cool
we have
woman.
that. So
Here's how to make the
right
so
ahead.
Lightroom 4, how I would make things kind of look HDR. And by the way, before we even start to look at this image, this is what I'm talking about. Here's this incredible, I rented this car the next day, and that driver was really cool. He did not speak very much English, but I had a guide with him who went along, and I just tipped him. He didn't even want pay, but I had this car, and this car was great, and they were very, very nice guys.
Wow,
but
that's a
look,
nice car.
Oh, dude, it was incredible. Look right next door, right? See this?
Oh, zoom in.
Zoom in.
Oh, because you can, right? It's like, look at the detail.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? But when you see this, what looks like, look, the Hyundai symbol is falling off.
Okay.
So it's been in an accident. And then look, here's like a Mitsubishi minivan, and then there's a Jeep, and then it really kills the shot when this really cool thing is surrounded by, new cars. There's one of the little, it's like a rickshaw, a bicycle rickshaw. That's what I would recommend for photographers when you're there. It's hot, because they don't go fast enough.
Right,
they don't
right.
pedal fast enough. But all right, so here's the post-production. What you do is this: you come here and we'll boost up the exposure a little bit. It's 3 sliders that really do it. Number 1 is open up the shadows, and it already kind of looks a little HDR-ish. Crush the highlights, go all the way to the left, and then what really does it, watch, is the new clarity. So look at the car now. Let me back off just a little bit. Look at the car here and watch the difference. It looks real shiny. If you want more shine, and add contrast, sorry, add contrast. Look how shiny, look at that, right, look. I'm gonna crop in so we can see a little better here, all right, so. And plus we can avoid some of the other cars that we don't really wanna see. All right, so look how shiny. Well, it's doing the crop and everything.
So it's like the guy in the Jeep's going, "Hey, that's a nice car over there."
All right, but watch. So then you can make it extra looking HDR by getting the adjustment brush, right? And cranking up the clarity and the shadows again and just painting over the car. So this is basically what gave everything that super shiny look. Now sometimes the car was super shiny, but look at just the adjustment brush. Look at just that.
Right.
It just enhances all the shadows and the detail. So, and you can maybe crush back the highlights and increase the contrast. You can really, just with that one brush.
The changes that they've made inside with clarity and things like that, it makes
Yeah.
it makes
and
for
this
a
photo
lot of really nice
wasn't the
effects.
greatest example. Let's try this one here, since that example was kind of. Let's go to.
That's cool.
I call this the yellow building next door. Here, I'll reset it. All right, so watch. When you increase the shadows, crush back the highlights, maybe draw down the blacks a little, and then increase the clarity. Look at that. Look at that. A little contrast, and it has a HDR-ish look to it. See all the detail that comes out, like look all in here and all in here. And it depends on the shot. This again is not perhaps the greatest example. I have an example of something I want to talk about shooting in bad light a little later. Okay. So so how much post was required to make the metallic paints pop? That's it.
Not that much.
About that much. It just depends.
You did a lot of street photography. Johan says, how about the subject you talked about on the last grid? I.e., how different was it from street photography in other countries? Did people look at you strange, or did they make any comments? And I think that speaks to the bigger question of the environment of the people.
Well, I will say this. Everybody was incredibly friendly. So nobody ever gave me any trouble. But I got to tell you, especially after the things we've been talking about on the grid, I was a little hesitant. I don't think I have any photos of women whatsoever.
Really?
But like for the gentleman, like look on screen right now. So the gentleman on the right. So I'm literally sitting in the back of the pedal car, and we're coming up on him, and I see him standing there, and look at the light on the right side of his face, right? So I lean out of the thing, and I go, bang, 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 and I shoot, and he looks at me like, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Hola, amigo," and he looks at me and goes, amigo, and he waved. That was it. And I was like, hey, you know, I gave him a big smile and all, and he smiled, and that was it. So I think I was a little more cautious on this trip after have been through Paris with Jay Maisel and all the things we talked about on the grid. Honestly, I was a little more cautious about shooting people, but nobody, even though that saw me, ever really gave me any heat or a mean look. Or the Cuban people were so incredibly friendly. I mean, as nice and as warm, and not just to me, but to each other. They were so helpful. Like if somebody would need to stop and ask directions, like they closed a road on the way to the airport and all, the level of help that they gave, another taxi driver and stuff, it was anytime anybody said, hey, do you know where this is? Can you? They like went out of their way. It was like, you ever go to Nordstrom and you ask where something is? They don't go, oh, it's over there. They walk you there. That's the way they were. Everybody wanted to help. It was the Cuban people, absolutely, and some of the most warmest, friendliest, nicest, happy, just go lucky people I've encountered traveling. So this guy that you saw on screen was you know, give me a big smile. Photo already asked, ¿qué es más mejor, el mojito o el Cuba Libre? So I didn't try a mojito while I was there. I did try I had just 3/4 of a glass of Cuban cerveza. It was so hot, you know, I'm not a big beer drinker. I'm mostly into heroin. But, no, I'm kidding, of course. Just kidding.
I like my meth.
No, but you know what they had? Coke Light. Diet Coke. They had Coke, they had Diet Coke, Pepsi. They had Fanta. Never saw Pepsi. And they had bottled water. You could get bottled water and that stuff everywhere. And very inexpensive.
There's like regular brands. Was it all Cuban brands?
Oh no, it was a Cuban brand of water. I didn't recognize it, but they had. I mean, it was regular Coca-Cola Light, and they have a Cuban cola called Tucola, Tukola, Tucola, and Tucola Diet. So if they didn't. Sometimes you'd ask for Coca-Cola Light, which is what the rest of the world calls Diet Coke. Okay. Like if you go to Europe, it's always called Coca-Cola Light, but they would give you Diet Tucola if they didn't have it. So.
Okay. All right. Did anyone else want to be paid for photos other than the Zaccar ladies?
No. No one. Only these two stores. Now, I'd had a heads up that the women were they were looking. You could tell. I mean, they're like standing in the square with these outfits on. Like, take a photograph with me, and people are tipping them.
Were there lots of people doing it? Like, were they running like a line, or was it like?
Well, the National Geographic group had a big crowd around her, but I mean, no. You know what it was? There weren't that many people. Just in general. I mean, it wasn't like mob scenes. Traffic wasn't bad. You could get around pretty well. I mean, I think the tourist season, from what I understand, is more like December, January, February kind of time, and I'm sure they're working to death. But right. in June, not that many people are stupid enough to go in June.
I know you went in the bicycle taxi around.
Yeah, that
How
was
long
wonderful.
were you in a bicycle taxi there?
I would go from an hour, usually an hour to pop. I would go in an hour. And honestly, now that I've done that, I would do it in any city, anywhere. If I see a bicycle taxi, I'm going for it, because that was the best way to because you can't believe how quick you could just stop, run into a church, take a few pictures, stop, run into a market, run over here, and your guy's right there. Okay. You don't have to say, I'm going to find a place to park, I have to circle, or anything like that. I mean, you would say, espera un momento, and he would stop right there. I mean, dude, you could he would go like this. You get out.
Friendly? Easy to talk to?
The drivers?
Yeah.
Oh, the driver. Everybody I never had a guide or a driver that wasn't as interested to talk to me as I was to them. So they would ask me about America. I would ask them about Cuba. I learned a lot about them. And so one of the guys goes, he's right, he's pedaling. And I feel bad for this guy because, I'm not the smallest guy in the world. He's driving, and he goes, that's my house. And I said, that's your house? He's like, see. So anyway, he goes, do you want to go inside? I live there with my mother. I said, yeah, sure. So we pull off the side of the road. I go inside, and we go in there, and he's got a small apartment. It's about the size of a studio apartment in New York, like one room, and then a very small kitchen. I mean, very small, but it had a refrigerator, stove and all. Color TV. CD player. DVD player. I mean, he had all the stuff, and I'm like, dude, you got color TV? Yeah, it's like you're the guy on the bike. You had all this stuff, and so it was interesting. I got to see his place. It wasn't beautiful, but it wasn't compared to what I've seen in China or what I've seen in India. It was a palace. I mean, compared to some of the other places, Egypt and places I've been in the world, I was like, this was way, 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 way better. And this wasn't the director of the bank or the manager of the hotel.
Guy riding the
it was
bicycle
small,
taxi.
but it was nice and it was very, very clean.
Did you meet his mom?
I did not, his mother. So they had told me about this before. So a lot of these old buildings have tall ceilings, maybe 10, 12-foot ceilings. They put a plywood roof over it. So the roof when you go in is right above your head. And his mother lives upstairs. She has to duck down. There's a spiral staircase. His mother ducks down and goes inside. And then you're downstairs with a very low 7-foot ceiling. So she lives in 5 feet. But at least that way she has her own little place. But you don't want to hang out up there because it's hot. And it's 5 feet. Now his mother,
Right.
you know, is maybe a little abuelita. She's very small and can cruise around. She probably can stand up in there.
Right.
So I want to go through some of the more of the images. Somebody says, "Will this be able to watch later?" Absolutely. We're going to archive this, and of course, anybody on Kelby Training can go back and watch it. I just want to kind of go through some of the images and just talk about them real quick. So this is an Edsel, dude, a 1958 or 56 Edsel. Dude, you never get to see an Edsel. You never get to drive in an Edsel. It was beautiful. It was actually in amazingly good shape. There was a couple of things that were a little funky, but overall, really good shape. We rented this for a night and just drove around. And just, there's something about riding in these old cars. And you know what they had? They actually had a car meetup. Like they had, like Harleys. All these Harley guys wearing Harley jackets, all super friendly. And then all these old cars right outside this big hotel. And they're just hanging out and they're drinking and they're having fun. And it was like like you would have here in the United States, just like when you have an old car club. They had an old car club. And this Ford Fairlane was there. So I took the picture. What I liked about the picture was it has the year of the car. It's a Ford Fairlane. You can see in 1957. And I tilted the camera a little. And it's a trick I learned from Lou Manna. So I took a workshop about shooting food from Lou Manna. And Lou kind of pointed out that when you're shooting food, it's kind of like a still life. So sometimes to give it energy, you tilt the camera. Because if not, if you saw the same shot straight, it looks a little stupid. And just angling it a little bit makes a big difference. But look at the trunk and how it has like a lock on it from your house. Like you're locking your front door has been added to the back of this.
That's wild. But see, and what was something that I was looking at that I thought was really interesting about that was that it's a Fairlane, like it's Ford Fairlane.
Yeah.
But then directly under that it's Cuba.
See.
And it's like, it's so iconoclastic.
Now, here was something that I wish I had taken a lot more advantage of. And it was the morning we're leaving, and I almost wanted to kick myself. The guy on the left, he was my driver. He spoke great English. I could have shot him to death.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean that photograph him.
Right.
But you know what? Like I had all these guys, and they would have posed for me. I could have done portrait shoots. I could have done like, you know, because I am.
He looks cool.
I'm a little uncomfortable. Now he was smiling in the first ones, and I said, okay, you know, no smile, and then he got that shot, and I liked the shot. But dude, they all have such incredible character. We had tour guides with us all the time, and I never ever asked anybody for a portrait except for him. And I feel like an idiot. Because here is a willing subject that will pose, and they're not going anywhere because you're paying them. So, yeah, that was kind of... All right, here is that yellow car I rented the next day. So what I did was, and this is a totally set up shot. Well, part of it was an accident. The rest of it was set up. I would basically drive around until I saw a wall of a contrasting color and then say, okay, this is it. I would jump out of the car. We would all jump out of the car. So over here to the right is the driver and my guide. I am across the street down like real low on one knee. The lucky part was I didn't see her until I started to frame the shot. I was going to frame it right here. And I took a look back and saw her. I was like, oh. So that was a lucky break that she just happened to be in the right spot. This is all set up like this car in front of that wall.
Hey, make a shot.
And then so that was make a shot. This is another driver and another car, and I had him pull in front of different walls, and I would come across the street. My wife is right beside me. We're like, you know, okay, move a little right there. Okay, stop. This is the same car from the front.
Ooh, I like
and what
that
makes
shot.
that look all shiny and stuff? Clarity.
I'm going to say
all
that's
the
the
stuff.
shot. That's your favorite shot. That's the one you're sending.
That is not it.
Oh.
All right, that is not it. And this one, same thing. It's got a bunch of clarity, and it's just that those few things you do in Lightroom that make it look, you know, because look at the sky. The skies don't look funky or, you know, anything, because I mostly painted over the car. Instead of doing the whole image, it's the adjustment brush. This is another one. Now, what made this shot work was This is shot in front of the Capitol. I had to wait until there were no modern cars going by and not really modernly dressed people. And also, you can't see it, but right here is like a cell phone store. And there was like modern signage on the front of the building.
Okay.
And also right here was a modern parking sign, the letter P with a blue sign, and then something else. There was one other little sign, maybe it said sale on Saturday or something, and I got rid of that using the patch tool. But this car, I painted over it with the clarity.
Okay.
All right. This was one of those ones where I had to wait. I had to wait until there were no other cars on the street. This car was parked, that one's parked, that one's parked, that one's parked. These are all old cars on a side street. That car actually is an old, like, Volvo. It's maybe 1970 or 80. So it looked a little out of place, which is why I made sure I made it way out of focus, so you really couldn't tell.
Right, right.
But this was you just have to wait. You just have to sit there and just wait and wait and wait until there's no cars. So sometimes I'm there 10 minutes and people are wondering, what's this guy? Why isn't he shooting? Why isn't he doing it? I'm standing there with all this camera gear.
Waiting for the right moment.
I'm waiting for the right moment to come back. And this is the restaurant where the margarita was invented. Huh. So it's called the Floridita, and this was this guy. They do quite a production out of lighting your cigar. This is my friend's cigar. And so this guy, very nice guy, he lights all our cigars, and he's our waiter, and he's really nice. And he comes and brings me a business card. Oh, I take this picture, and he says, can I see it? And I said, sure. And I show him the card. I show him the back of my camera. He walks back to me about 5 minutes later and hands me a business card with his name and email address. He's like, here's my website. Here's my email address. Can you send me that thing? I'm like, you got a website and email address, dude?
But see, and I
Dude,
think
I met people that had iPhone 3s. I met bartenders that had iPhones. I met bartenders that had Xbox. I mean, it was very different than what I was expecting. Let me cruise through here. This is taken from the top of a double-decker bus tour. I always tell people, when you go to a new city, take the double-decker bus tour and just use it as a location scout. Go all over the town to find out where you want to go back to, and that is exactly what I did. But I did take this shot from the top of the double-decker bus. It's just an interesting angle. So is that one. The one on the left is taken from the top of the double-decker bus. This was one that I ripped off. Okay, you ready for this? Small world time. My tour guide says, oh, you're a photographer? Yeah. Oh, you know, I take photo groups down here. I just took this one down here. You ever heard of Lori XL? I'm like, are you kidding me? Lori's my friend. Are you kidding? She teaches at Photoshop World. She's on Kelby training. I know Lori's like, oh, I brought her photo group here. So, small world. Anyway,
surprise. But
here's what happens. Here's why I ripped off Lori. So we're walking. Oh, yeah. And the tour guy goes, see that building right there? Lori shot about 1,000 shots of that. Our whole group was shooting this building. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, stand here. And I look, and each part of these other buildings is there. And I'm shooting, and my wife goes, look over, stand right here. She goes, it looks like a Dr. Seuss house. And so I got that. And so, and this is in front of the museum that we went into, one of the museums that we went into, the Museum of the Revolution, and it used to be the Presidential Palace. I did shoot a bunch of HDR. I bet I shot more HDR in that palace than anything else. It was 1,000,000 degrees in there, dude. It was hot on a level. The one thing that country needs an air conditioning unit like you cannot believe. This is a beautiful restaurant on the top of a hotel. Used to be a casino run by the mob. And now it is the most beautiful, stunning restaurant with views all across the city. There's my driver. So I want to talk about how this shot was taken. Oh, that's my wife's appetizer at a restaurant. The food, RC?
Good.
Oh. Dude, the food was insane. Dude, it was incredible. And I shot the food. So what I want to talk about, and we don't have much time left here, is, you know, I talk to people about when they're shooting travel photography. You don't really get to dictate, I want to shoot at dawn and I want to shoot at dusk, you know, especially since we were up very late at night. There was no shooting at dawn, dude, you know. And it's not a landscape either, but I could have got up and really got some better light. But a lot of times, I'm with a group of 7 other couples. I mean, it's as everybody's vacation. So I'm not there on a photo shoot where you know, I was able to sneak away from the group a couple of times and rent one of those little things. But the rest of the time, even in the cars, I'm with a group. We're all in a group of cars and stuff. So what's interesting about it is you have to shoot travel photography inside the confines of everyone's vacation, including your own and your wife's. So I wasn't able to go, and do a whole bunch of stuff. So we're walking in the heart. We're on our way to lunch. It is literally 12:30 in the afternoon, dude. Light doesn't get any worse than it is in Havana at 12:30, and that's where I took this shot. And I just kind of wanted to show you a couple of things that you can do post-processing wise to help, because I walked by this guy and he's doing something with the gas in the back of his and it's a cool car and it's against a cool background and you got to shoot it, but you're looking at this going, this is going to stink. It's got to stink because it's really bad light. And I just want to kind of show you what we do in that situation, because there are some things you can do to help. I'm not trying to say you can shoot in bad light, but sometimes you don't have a choice, right? So I'll show you the original untouched image right here. So, dude, look at the light there.
Yeah.
Dude, it doesn't get any worse than that.
That's a beautiful car, though.
It's a beautiful car, but it's washed out.
Yeah.
Look at the ground. Look at the walls. It's crooked, you know. And I hadn't even got to the mojitos yet. Just kidding. So I want to go to the develop module and just show you. So what I would do. First, I just got to straighten the cropping because it's just, you know, crooked is just stupid. All right. So that's a little better. All right. So what you have to do is, in broad daylight like this, there are two things that you're working against. You've got harsh shadows and way nasty highlights. So watch what just pulling back the highlights does. And this is something that you could do recovery a little bit, you know, right, in Lightroom 3 and stuff, but it's so much better. So watch what pulling back the highlights does to the whole image. It's almost like watch the sun go into a cloud, right?
Yeah.
So now what you can do is you can go here, get the adjustment brush, and do the same thing again. Let's do the shadows again, but maybe lower the exposure a little too, and then watch. I'm going to paint over the ground, and look what that does for the washed out ground.
Nice.
Right, and you can do the same thing for the building. I don't think you'd want to do it quite that much. So let's hit new. So that tells Lightroom I'm now working on a new part of the image. Leave everything else I've done alone, and let's just darken it just a little bit. So you're all of a sudden taking this thing that was really, really harsh, you're pulling back all the highlights, and it just makes it look like there was cloud cover. And we were actually very fortunate that one day we did have exactly that. Now you notice I'm not painting over the door because it's already dark. So I'm just kind of taking a little of the heat off all of this stuff, off of him, look at his clothes, off the background behind the car and stuff, all right? So look at the difference, just the brush is done. If we're not making, and I haven't done a beautiful job of the masking and all that. Okay, now see that area right there, that bright spot of light coming in there? You would just go again to new, and let's just pull back the highlights, just right there. So it just doesn't look that harsh. Now what you're going to do is you're going to work on just the car. Now you can do part of that by coming over here and hitting the clarity. Now watch the car. Look at the shine. Look at that. Did you see that?
That looks good.
All right, now, so basically I'm going to go back and get the brush, hit new again, and now I'm going to paint, I'm going to open up the shadows on the car a little because it's kind of dark, and then open up the clarity. You know, I'm going to make it look, you know, the clarity is the mid-tone contrast. Not doing much of anything. Let's increase it some more. There we go. And then you're going to have to do the wheels. You're going to have to clamp them down. But look at the difference in just a few seconds. All right.
Oh, David G. online says that the red car is Scott's favorite.
It is not. It is not. We haven't gotten to my favorite yet. All right. That was a good guess, though. Okay. And we're just about out of time, so I want to do a couple more. Just want to show you a couple more images and just talk about them. I also want to show you some spreads that didn't make the book. It'll just be very quick. Let's see where we were at. Here is my lunch one day. So I always shoot the food. I think that's really important when you're doing travel photography. If you look in like travel magazines, they always show the food, you know, and of course it's spaghetti and you're like, were you in Italy? No. There's my maitre d'. There's the menu. This is, I went to our tour guide's house, and that was in his house. This is a 9-shot pano taken from the top of the, what used to be a casino.
Casino, yeah.
That's taken from just the ledge, just 9 shots, bang, 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 bang. And I just saw this guy playing in the park and thought it would be kind of cute to just show a little bit of him, but mostly the base. By law, you have to have the word taxi on your taxi. And so they keep it down and pop it up there, you know, so if, you know, the police come, they would get a fine if they didn't do it. They took me to, I specifically asked on my tour of the city, we went by an old soccer field that has been abandoned. It was built in the Soviet area. It was built by the Soviets, maintained by the Soviets. When 1980, when the Soviet Union fell apart and all the Soviets left Cuba, everything is deteriorated. But dude, this place makes unbelievable backgrounds for compositing. I shot an abandoned soccer stadium that's insane. I can't wait to do a composite with it.
Wow.
So, the guide, this is where he was, you know. Churches.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I'm walking into churches, and they make you take your hat off. I had a ball cap on. They're like, hat off. Oh, yeah, sorry. Woo. But they were so nice about it. You know, you walk into a church with a hat on in the United States.
Just like Matt.
Like Matt. They'll come over and club you. And I just wasn't thinking. It wasn't intentional. Of course, I know you're supposed to take your hat off in church. I walked in, the guy went, you know, hat, and I took it off, and I said, sorry. And he was like, no problem. Please, please. I mean, that's the way everybody was. Everybody was like, you know, let me help you. Let me get the door. I mean, they were just so nice. Beautiful churches, church after church, just gorgeous. These are all handheld, but this wasn't HDR'd. It's tone mount, you know, all
the clarity trick.
I shot it though. I've shot them. I want to redo them all in HDR and see what they really look like.
Oh man, I'm like.
And this is my lunch one place, you know, the cheese and stuff. We're gonna have to wrap it up here in just a sec. I'll just take you through a couple of more of these. I want to show you some ones that didn't make the book.
Wow, it's just such an
interesting.
What?
That's my favorite photo.
It
is. Now let me show you the actual image. All right, and I can show you why I like it and why maybe I'm the only one.
Huh.
All right. So I just like all the stuff that's going on here. What caught my eye was actually the two like Panama hats in the back window. And then there's a guy in the back seat with a very, very contrasting color, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have a guy walking out of the frame. You have another guy, look over here. He's looking looking at me. And then this guy, it's a story, you know, what's going on. Everybody's going somewhere. He's going here, he's looking at me, this guy's walking out of the frame. I love the old car, but I think what really did it with these three things, this part of the car, him, and the hats. And in fact, if you look in Lightroom here, back here, there's the hats. So I shot the hats first.
And then you kind of came around and you worked the scene.
I came around. I had to work the scene. Yeah, I have probably 12 shots of that car and that guy. But that was the one where I took that one. I said to my wife, this is like the third day, I said, you know, the second day, because we're only there 2.5 days. And I said, honey, I got my shot. Now, I may be seeing something. Joe McNally's here in town. Yeah. And I had dinner with Joe last night. And I said, Joe, take a look at the shot. And, you know, and Joe liked it. He gave me all his reasons for liking it. But I'm like, am I crazy? Because you know sometimes you'll like a shot.
And you know what? And that happens.
It has happened, and we've talked about it happening. All right.
Ow.
RC had a shot that he loved, and we had to have an intervention. The whole company got together. But I love a lot of RC stuff, so wasn't it? Anyway, here's a couple more. I'm going to finish off by showing you. Ooh, there's the Edsel.
Oh yeah.
At the car show. So while we were in this other hotel, they parked it down there. That's the Edsel at the car show. And this is in a club. This is Rick Salmon recommended a terrific restaurant called Europa. Mm. We went there. They had a great band. And then over here is the guys next to me food.
Lots of music?
Dude, I walked from this restaurant Europa back to our hotel. There's music everywhere in Cuba. And what a music-oriented society, because you're walking down the street, you hear a live band. As soon as that one fades out, you hear the next live band at the next club. And people are in the street, and they're just dancing. I mean, the spirit of the Cuban people. I mean, they're literally just, you know, they're I mean, they're just like, just wherever they are. They're working, they're doing things, and they're just moving because the music, you know, it was amazing. The music was everywhere. I mean, it really was. I didn't expect to be as many cars or as much music. But dude, there were congos, bongos, everything. Everywhere you went, there was live music, live, and if it wasn't live, it was playing over stereo. It was great. Very little of the propaganda type stuff, just here and there. This was the palace that I shot HDR. That is not an HDR shot.
Right.
But I did shoot HDRs of these. This is the palace that is now the Museum of the Revolution. And there was just, you know, pictures and stories from the Revolution, I think, too. This was right outside the museum. I walk out the door, and this is there. So what did I have to do? I had to wait till the Toyotas and the Hyundais stopped driving by, and I got an old blue Volvo there. And we saw those. This is, I'm on the little car, bicycle. I stop out, I go past this. There's a doorway and a wrought iron, and you can look right in there, and that's exactly what it looks like. Orange walls, they might even been brighter than that. I said, "Oh, can you stop?" I jump out. I stick my lens right through the thing I'm shooting, and I shoot about 10 frames, like a 5-spot HDR, 5-spot HDR, click, click, and a guard moves right in front of my camera. And he looks. And I'm like, it's wide open, dude. You know, it's like the door's open. I'm not going inside. I'm shooting literally from the street. And he's like, I think really, honestly, what he wanted was a couple of bucks. If I'd have pulled out $5, it'd have been like, let me unlock the door for you. Come on in. I mean, I really felt like he was, but I'd already got my shots. I was like, I'll see you. All right, I just want to show you a couple ones that didn't make the book. These are some ones that they're going to be in my book, but I didn't show them on my blog or anyplace else. And these aren't too stunning, which is why they didn't make the book. This is the Capitol building. Which is, it looks very much like the U.S. Capitol building. It is, I think, 2 feet taller than the U.S. Capitol building by design. And this is a hotel, I shot this shot from standing right down here at this hotel. And this is just typical rooftop. The architecture and the detail and stuff was beautiful. A really incredible architecture. This woman was just making some kind of foodstuffs, and I liked all the colors. The colors were beautiful. You know what was very different about Cuba than India? When I went to India, India looks like it is in desperate need of a coat of paint. The colors are there, but they're not vibrant because they haven't repainted in years. Havana was very vibrant. There were fresh paint. There was a lot of restoration. A lot of people working on restoring it. There were beautiful parks, beautiful monuments. Things were very, very clean. It was a very overall clean atmosphere. There wasn't garbage, there wasn't junk. Everything was very, very nice. And so that was a big difference between India. I mean, look at this building. Look at the paint. I mean, on it. Everything was nice and very clear and very clean. There's the Edsel and some friends in the car of ours. And I just shot this. Everywhere you go, Havana Club logo. That is the only logo you see all over. You don't see billboards, you don't see stuff, but you do see all that stuff. This is up at the top of the Hemingway Hotel, the hotel where Hemingway hung out. I'm shooting the tile. And the musicians are looking at me like,
really?
Why is the American shooting the tile? And this is actually from that restaurant rooftop bar. That's the fort, the old fort in Havana. And that's just on our way there. This is another church, and these are plates. And I stopped the little bicycle guy and said, let me just shoot these plates.
Wow.
So they're just some. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to be able to share a couple other things about it, let people know that.
I still have another half a sheet of questions. I mean, there's so many things to be able to talk about. But all in all, great experience.
Wonderful experience. I was very impressed with the spirit of the Cuban people. I did not go for any kind of political reasons. I went literally because of just, I've always heard it was a beautiful city. After seeing Rick Salmon's pictures, I really, really wanted to go. And RC and I eat at a Cuban restaurant right near us, Cuban Breezes, which is a fantastic restaurant. There is great Cuban photography in the restaurant. I have a couple of posters there and of the old cars and stuff. And I've always wanted to go. Every time I go in there and look at that poster, he has this yellow car and it's a tall poster and it shows Havana. And so when we got the chance to go, I immediately thought of, man, it's going to be a photographer's paradise. Can I tell you something, RC, though? The hardest thing of it was, from a photography standpoint, was you're standing there in all of this amazing stuff. And I look at my wife the first day and I said, I'm having so much fun. I can't even tell you. I'm like, and my wife is so wonderful. She's happy if I'm happy, right? And she sees me beaming and she's like, oh, I'm so excited you're having such a good time. And I get back to my room and I look at my stuff and I'm like, it's almost worse when everywhere around you is cool stuff. You're frustrated that you're not capturing it. Yeah, it's like, you ever been shot at the Grand Canyon, RC?
No, I've been there. I haven't taken pictures of it.
It's like shooting at the Grand Canyon. You're standing in front of this amazing vista and you're looking at this huge thing. You're like, this is incredible. And you take your camera up to your eye and you go, and you look at the pictures and the Grand Canyon looks this big. Cuba was a little bit like that. By the time I got done with 2.5 days, I felt like, okay, I have a good photo book. But it was frustrating because you don't know where to point. It's like there were so many things to photograph. Do you understand? It's hard to explain, but it's like I thought I would have done better than I did. I guess. I guess that's what it is. You're in the most
well. You felt one way, and your pictures.
And my pictures looked another. And I'm okay with what I got. I'm not disappointed. I'm actually.
Would you go back?
Oh, I have to go back. I got to go back. I'm trying to plan now to go back. So RC wants to go, and Dave wants to go, and I realize I got to be putting together a friend trip down to Cuba again. But I'm going to have to go through some kind of a cultural program to do it, which means you'll be going to some museums.
Yeah.
You're not bringing back anything.
I'm going back to museums. But anyway, Scott, thanks so much.
Oh yeah, I don't know how much help I was tonight.
that was really, really cool, and it's great because there's a lot of us that are from a photographic background and want to see these kinds of things, and there's a lot of interesting differences, like things that you wouldn't necessarily see. So thanks for sharing that. Brad, thank you so much for handling the questions.
Thank you.
We
Meredith?
have all of these questions,
Jen?
so we'll be going back and taking a look at that, and maybe we'll put them on the blog. We'll do a post or do something where if we can answer it, we'll be more than happy to. But again, MPix promo, make sure that you take a look at that.
Thank you, MPix.
Right?
That was
Thank
cool
you,
of you.
MPix,
Very
for
cool of you guys.
jumping in the last minute and giving us a
did.
promo. Obviously, if you guys want to see more of this stuff, this will be rebroadcast. I think it's going to be on Wednesdays sometime.
Yeah, I'm going to probably run it on my Google Plus page and perhaps on my blog, and then it'll be archived on kelbytraining.com for anybody that's a subscriber there.
Right. So there you go. So there you have it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Adios.